regular scheduled board meeting. I feel like I wanted to call the meeting to order, but you all did it on your own. The enthusiasm and excitement from 5 minutes ago was awesome. So, the Board of Education maintains a webpage on lewispalmer.org through which members of our public can find our live streaming information, meeting records, as well as presentations and resources which we will review and discuss during this meeting. Matt, could I ask you to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Wood, could you call roll, please?
Mr. Clausen?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Schwartz?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Ms. Upchurch?
Here.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Taylor.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
So our first agenda item, B1, is recognition, and it's Principal Appreciation Month. Dr. Summers?
Okay, I'm gonna get from behind the table. And I'm going to do this a little bit close to the audience. So welcome out to our board meeting, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I am very privileged to be able to celebrate and recognize some outstanding leaders in our district. And if you did not already know, October happens to be National Principal Appreciation Month. And so it's my distinct pleasure to honor and recognize some of our outstanding principals. And we have a slideshow that's going to go with this. So if you'll allow me a moment. Are we pulled up here, Vicki? Vicki. There's a no. You're okay. We're good. Well, it kind of cues with it, so hold on real quick here. That's all right. There we go. It's good. It's loading. Okay. So, as that's loading, Mark, where'd you go? You can pull that up for me while I do have as a good superintendent, I'd like to reference the research first and foremost. So our research that we have on effective school principals is abundantly clear that really good principals are second only to teachers as the most influential school level factor in student achievement. Effective principals influence a variety of school outcomes, including student achievement, staff support and empowerment, parent and family engagement, and all the other duties as assigned, which I'll just leave you to the imagination, but if you have a question about what all those other duties are, feel free to ask your most favorite principal. The research is also very clear that success in the areas of influence in school leadership entails 5 key responsibilities: setting high expectations and shaping a vision of academic and holistic success for all students, creating an optimal learning environment focused on safe and orderly learning, as well as the spirit of innovation and bringing joy into the learning experience, cultivating leadership in others so that teachers and staff can thrive and be at their best, improving instruction, again by empowering teachers to teach at their best and helping all students to learn, and managing people, data, and processes to foster continuous improvement. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we have a fantastic team, and they're all just very much happy that I invited them and also required them to attend tonight. So they do a good job following the expectations as well. So what I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to ask the board to help me here because we have, first and foremost, a couple of items. Well, actually, there's a book. So if we can have the board come up here, and there's 8 of our principals within our district-operated schools that we have a book for. So yes, you all will help us distribute these books. I'm going to read the names of our principals one at a time, and they're going to come up. Oh, first of all, that's a fantastic picture taken just last week that, again, they were very enthusiastic about, as you can tell. So our fantastic principals are going to be recognized again this month, and we're going to start with Miss Bridget O'Connor. Is Bridget here? Hi, Bridget. Bridget's, okay, so what we did, Bridget, stay up here. No, Bridget. We're going to do a big picture at the end. So the book that was actually selected by our principals is being dedicated to their school library. This was one of their favorite childhood books. I'm not going to put you on the spot. You're not going to have to say anything. But it is, can you tell us what book it is?
Charlotte.
Wonderful. Thank you. Excellent book. Okay, next we have Dr. Adam Frank from Palmer Ridge High School. Yep. Dr. Frank, your book is Goblins in the Castle. Great choice.
It's one of the only books I read.
Oh, full disclosure, huh? All right. Very good. Mr. Sean O'Connor from Lewis Palmer Middle School. Mr. O'Connor. Oh, Mr. O'Connor, very good choice. Goodnight Moon.
Yes, a favorite with the kids.
Favorite with the kids, absolutely. Okay, moving on to our elementary schools. So Mr. Brian Pohl from Kilmer Elementary. Mr. Pohl, what book do you have there? Hatchet, Gary Paulson. All right. That is looks really good. All right, Mrs. Devon Johnson from Lewis Palmer Elementary School. And it looks like Mrs. Johnson has Where the Red Fern Grows. Yes. Bring the tissue with you. All right. Next, Mrs. Alicia Welch from Prairie Winds Elementary School. Mr. Taylor has your book, it looks like. And your book is?
Boxcar Children.
The Boxcar Children. Another great one. All right. Mrs. Peggy Griebenow from Palmer Lake Elementary School. And Mrs. Griebenow has Anne of Green Gables. And last but not least, from our district-operated schools, Peggy Parsley from Bear Creek Elementary School. And Mrs. Parsley has the giving tree. And I have a feeling, so in full transparency, there will be another opportunity for the reception, I think, that was just received. But what we were going to do first is have all of our district schools. Now, I don't know that we have our Monument Academy principals with us, but I did want to give them a shout out, particularly because we also have Monument Academy here joining us tonight. So quick shout out to Kurt Walker from Monument Academy Elementary School. Mr. Colin Vinchattel from Monument Academy Middle. And Mr. David Kennington from Monument Academy High School. So hats off to our MA principals. So what we wanted to do is a picture with everybody. So if we can get our board to sidestep this way. All right, thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Parsley, I don't know if you're going to go very far, but we do have one other special individual that I would like to acknowledge, who used to be a principal and has been filling the role of leadership and learning coach with us for the past couple of years. And this happens to be her last official board meeting with us because Mrs. Jenny Day has taken an awesome opportunity to join Ent Federal Credit Union in, what's the role, Jenny, again? Director of Workforce Belonging. Isn't that like such a cool title? But what I can say about, and Jenny, if you could, please join me up here. So, Mrs. Day, words cannot describe how much you have meant to our organization for the past 22 years. And you have given us so much to so many, including some amazing memories and amazing laughs. If you don't know, Mrs. Day happens to be like one of the more humorous, but also very sensitive and deeply connected individuals that we have in our district. So you are going to be dearly missed. And we wish you all the best as you move forward. And we have some flowers for you to say thank you for all of that. And some handshakes. And one parting picture at least. So we'll re-cue our board up here one more time for Mrs. Day. Yep, right here is good. Give her a big round of applause. All right, and I already mentioned this earlier. We have another retiree, but she gets to be with us for a few more months here. But Mrs. Parsley, if you can join me one more time up here at the front. So, oh. You know, I didn't cue the darn thing. So this, yeah, you know what though, Mrs. Parsley? No, you're good. Because look, we do have kids with you there. So this is Mrs. Parsley in action. So 27 incredible years of service, the last 16 of which have been as a principal. And I can just speak from personal experience here. Mrs. Parsley brings everything she has into this position each and every day on behalf of every person that she serves in her school community. And Bear Creek, if you are not aware, is, I think, at least we've been told, it is, if not the largest, the second largest elementary school in all of Colorado. And you have led at Bear Creek through multiple transitions and fun and challenge, and you do it with grace, and you do it with focus and perseverance, and you do it on behalf of all of your people. And I just know that this is one of many celebrations that's to come, well, okay, we're not going to bring you back to the board meeting to do it here with us. So there's a reason we're doing it here in October, especially in honor of Principal Appreciation Month. But I think the other thing that you bring is such wisdom and support for all of us as leaders in the district. And so we are so grateful for so much. We also have some flowers for you. And we also have, Mr. Taylor has in a bag, a very special gift that we think you will really enjoy. We are not going to put you on the spot and have you share it right now, but I think you will have many things that are shared with you in that bag. And I think it just speaks to your impact for so many, and it's no doubt that there are so many that are here to also be part of this celebration. So I know there was a standing ovation earlier. I think it might be appropriate to do another big standing ovation.
And as I run for my chair, I just want to say that it would be because of all of you guys, I've enjoyed my job for so long. It's amazing to work next to such wonderful people. So thank you all.
And one more picture. We don't. Thank you so much. And thank you again for coming, everyone. And I believe that was as much recognition as we could put into this meeting. So thank you again for indulging all of that.
Comment.
Thank you, teachers. We appreciate everything.
Was it something we said?
How you doing, Ludwig? Good to see you.
Bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Summers. Our next meeting item is B2, public comments. At this time, in accordance with policy BEDH, the board will hear comments from members of the public who have signed up to speak. It is our goal as a board to continuously listen and improve as we invite members of the community to speak publicly for a total of 30 minutes. Speakers will be allotted up to 3 minutes each, and time may be divided equally if there's more than 10 individuals who wish to speak. Groups with a united concern may be asked to appoint a spokesman. The Board of Education does not expressly, individually respond to public comments. And to this point, comments expressed do not represent the position or opinion of the Board of Education or District 38. Finally, we thank you. We ask that you keep comments shared appropriate for our PK to 12 audience and respectful at all times. Should you have an issue with a staff member that you would like addressed, please consider sharing these criticisms and concerns with the superintendent, who is responsible for supervising all staff and involving the board as necessary. I think we had one email comment, and if we could read that first, and then we'll move to those in attendance.
We had one email public comment submitted, and that was by Jeanette Breton, who's a local resident. And the public comment is the district's priority in educating K-12 students. I agree that the district should be providing a safe and welcoming environment, but I don't feel that declaring resolutions on propositions like 122 on the November ballot are an effective use of the district's influence in the community. Please do not get into the politics of propositions like 122, especially when you have an MLO initiative on the ballot that supports teachers. Teachers are key to providing that safe and welcoming environment. Focus on your teachers, operations, and effective use of your buildings. If there are statements in the community that are refuting the facts around the current MLO, then in these last board meetings before the election, the board should be focused on clarifying these facts. Stay focused on educating students and making educated choices. Supporter of the MLO and D38, Jeanette Breton.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Brom.
My name is Michael Brom. I'm the proud parent of a D38 graduate and have been a teacher and a coordinator here since 2013. The turnover since last year, coupled with the number of classified and certified staff who have left us since the start of the new school year, now 25, is unprecedented compared to anything I've seen in all of the districts I've worked in during my 30 years in education. D38's current turnover rate is over 26%, which is above the state average. Our turnover rate should be below the state average, especially given our community's quality of life, as well as our children's academic growth and achievement. Between 2019 and 20 and 2021-22, 101 paraprofessionals and 153 teachers have left D38. That's 260 staff in 2 years. We have seen an alarming decrease in the number of applicants and in some cases have received no applicants at all. That is one reason we still have so many unfilled positions 2 months into the school year. It is important to note the various employee staffs who will be positively impacted by the passage of 4A. Building grounds and maintenance, bus drivers, transportation, clerical, custodians, food services, homeschool enrichment academy, information technology, paraprofessionals and teachers, which includes Monument Academy staff, security, and warehouse personnel. Administrators are not included in 4A. Having grown up experiencing poverty as the oldest of 8 children, I do understand on a personal level how the MLO will potentially impact our families. The MLO burden on families will vary, and I know that is a factor in how many will vote. Respectfully, at the same time, our current situation is not sustainable. Many of our paraprofessionals have hourly wages that are less than what some of our current high school students earn at their evening and weekend jobs. The most recent official turnover information on the Colorado Department of Education's website is for the 2021-22 school year, which shows a D38 paraprofessional turnover rate of 38.6%, while the instructional support turnover rate was 41%. As of today, D38 has 11 open paraprofessional positions. In District 20, a first-year teacher earns $6,670 more per year than a first-year teacher in D38. It would take the same first-year teacher in D38 over 9 years before they would earn the same salary they can earn in the first year in D20. That's a cumulative difference of over $60,000 over 9 years and $200,000 over a 30-year career. That puts us at an even greater hiring disadvantage locally. In closing, our turnover rate is too high. We are not attracting enough applicants to fully staffed positions, which is now directly impacting student learning and support services. Our academic growth and achievement are above average. However, our staff compensation remains below average. The MLO asks us to get D38 to average compensation, which is essential if we wish to be a first choice for new staff and attract and retain the best possible talent to educate our children. The education of our children is a collective responsibility of the school community and the community at large. Every child in our schools deserves the best education and services we can possibly provide to them. Thank you for investing in our children and our non-administration staff by voting yes on 4A.
Thank you. Next, we have Jackie Burhans.
Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm an alumni parent, or a parent alumni, but I'm also a volunteer reporter for Our Community News. I don't write about this board meeting for the paper, although I do take some photos, but I do cover the Monument Academy School Board meeting, so I attend almost every board meeting, workshop, and town hall. And so I was there on October 13 when D38 Superintendent Casey Summers, Chief Business Officer Brett Ridgway, and Board President Chris Taylor presented on the upcoming 4A MLO. This is the first time that I can recall that the D38 leadership came and presented and then responded to comments and answered questions. I thought you all did a great job of summarizing the situation and clarifying misconceptions. D38 teachers and support staff are underpaid compared to the surrounding districts, and MA teachers and support staff are paid even less given MA's financial model. The MA board has mentioned several times that in their board meetings, has mentioned this several times in their board meetings, and has been exploring various ways to raise consistent, reliable funds to improve the situation. So, as has been noted, this MLO benefits MA just as it does D38. At the end, MA proposed a joint resolution, which D38 subsequently unanimously signed, and they stated in their resolution that they will use the approximately $1 million they will receive in funding for increasing compensation for their teachers and support staff, just as the district will do. But On several occasions, MA has also noted that having this extra source of revenue, in addition to helping with teacher and support staff compensation, will improve their overall income-to-debt ratio, which will help them raise the funds they need for the Phase 2 build-out to finish their high school. So this MLO actually benefits MA in two significant ways. I believe the joint resolution unanimously adopted by both the D38 and the MA boards is a significant step forward in ensuring that teachers and support staff across all 10 public schools in the district can better serve their students by attracting and retaining the best possible staff. I appreciate the efforts on both sides to work together on this issue and encourage the community to support the ballot issue 4A. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Thomas.
Hi, Chris Thomas. I'm a community member and a former parent in the district, also an employee in the district. Recently, Niche came out with the ranking of schools across the state, and Lewis Palmer School District ranked 10th on this particular list. This is a ranking that is tracked regularly each year. Everyone is excited that we are 10th. This is amazing, and we did it, and we are excited and proud. We are in the top 10. But teachers who pay attention to this, teachers who have been here for many years, who are asked to do more and more every year with less and less competitive wages, teachers who have stayed through pay freezes, small raises, which just reinstate past pay freezes, are saying quietly in the background, but some years back, we were 3rd in the state. Didn't you notice? We're slipping. Teachers are being asked to do more with less competitive wages, all the while continuing to maintain the academic excellence our students in our district, giving our students everything they need to succeed when they leave our buildings, to graduate with all the accolades. This is not sustainable. We're struggling to hire and keep teachers mainly because we lack a competitive salary. We're going to start sliding. Did you notice that we used to be 3rd, but we're excited we're 10th and we're in the top 10? But principals and admin cannot fill much needed positions across the district, or positions are filled in several weeks. Then after several weeks, after training new staff, getting them up to speed, getting them acclimated to the building, and now they have kids in front of them. New hires are offered positions at neighboring districts with $6,000 to $10,000 more a year. So they resign from the D38 to take a higher paying teaching position in a neighboring district. We have become a holding place for teachers until something better comes around. Or teachers receive offers so much better than what they currently receive at D38 that they make the hard decision to leave after the start of the school year. Either way, now we're starting the hiring process all over again. Only now we have students in the building and no teacher. Now our principals and admin work to find a sub and hopefully find a long-term sub until another teacher can be hired. Oh, but sub rates are also one of the lowest among the neighboring districts, and we're struggling across the district with available subs on top of the fact that there is a sub shortage across the state. So our principals and admin now work together to find coverage for classes that have no teacher. Other teachers are pulled from their plan times, paid extra to cover a class they may or may not have taught before, and work to give kids the quality education we all expect. And now there is a ripple effect. That teacher is giving up their plan time, now has more work to do after school. Oh, but wait, this teacher also helps coach after school. So now their planning time is pushed to after practice. Oh, but the teacher has a family at home that wants their time. So that planning gets pushed to the next morning, and the teacher arrives an hour early to plan for their classes that day. Now that teacher is tired and has to push that tired feeling away to be on point in front of their kids all day, to be in a space that feeds this teacher's soul. But by the end of the day, in the end of the week, this teacher is mentally and physically exhausted. This is not sustainable. We need better compensation to be competitive with our neighboring school districts, to be able to hire quality, dedicated teachers and not be a second choice until something better comes through. So the teachers and staff who have been here many years and know our previous rankings ask, when will our ranking on this tracker not be okay? Everyone who works in this district is an integral part of our team to educate each and every one of our students. But there is also one other very important part to our team, and that is each and every community member across this district. And that part is your financial investment in our teachers. in our support staff. And at the core of this district is your investment in every student within our buildings, no matter if it is MA, online, homeschool, an investment in every student within every building from Kilmer to Palmer Lake, from Palmer Ridge to LP, every building in between. Whether you have kids attending a program or a school in our district, or you're a resident with no kids, or you are retired, you are a part of this team called D38, and you have an integral part in educating our next leaders, doctors, teachers, business owners, mechanics, and the list goes on. Each and every student in this district, from preschool to 12th grade, will be given the best education when every part of this team does their part. I want to share with you a quote by Don Richardson that was shared with me. Education, the single most important investment that we as a country will ever make. So if you have voted already in support of 4A, I speak for every teacher and support staff by saying thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your support and investment. If you have not yet voted, I ask that you be a part of the D38 team by supporting 4A, supporting and investing in our teachers, our support staff, and most of all, supporting and investing in our students, each and every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the next agenda item B3, board member comments. I'd like to start with Teresa and then Tiffany, Ron, and Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I don't have any comments this evening.
Okay, thank you.
So I have 2 points I want to discuss. First, I want to talk about, over the past several weeks, I've visited almost every single one of our buildings, and the buildings that I haven't been in yet, I will be in this week and following the next. Through PTOs, through BACs, through site visits and tours, talking to our staff, talking to our parents, and the feedback is always the same, and that is what happens if there's a fear that what happens if this doesn't pass. We have a lot of new staff, and we've been very fortunate in the staff that we've hired, and it was tough go-arounds to get those staff in place, and there is a fear from our building leaders of what happens. And I have to say that our building leaders, our principals, they walk in those buildings, and every time I've walked around with our principals, you recognize that our students are not a test score. They're not a standardized test score, and we talk about that. They build relationships with their teachers. They build relationships with their principals. Mrs. O'Connor will be walking down the hall, and a student will give her a high five and tell her about a bike ride she did. Mr. Frank will be walking down the hall with a student, and a student's advocating for Mr. Frank to wear a costume with them on Halloween. Mrs. Johnson will be walking down the hall, and a kiddo will run up and just wrap their arms around her waist and give her a hug. That's the relationships we build in D38, and that's what D38 is, and that's the culture in D38. All of our kids are our students between all of our buildings. We have 10 schools in this district. We have over 6,000 students in this district, parents, community members, taxpayers, people that are involved in civics and in church, and this is all businesses. We are all neighbors. And regardless of how you voted, can we please remember that we are neighbors, and we play together, we shop together. So let's have that neighborly mindset, please. And when niche was brought up, that's what made me think of the test scores. Cheyenne Mountain School District, on their website, they're bragging that they have been voted the #1 school in the state of Colorado through niche. Niche is not it does have meaning and power. So just remember, our students are not test scores. And I appreciate and applaud and thank you, all of the staff, all of our principals, for allowing me to come through and say hi. And I would suggest any one of our community members, if you want to know what it's like to be in a D38 school, go visit. Our principals are more than willing and welcome to walk you around and show you a classroom, a kindergarten classroom, or a lunchroom, or a band class. So please, I don't care how you vote, just go and visit our schools and support our schools. I do care how you vote, but I mean, visit our schools. Also, I want to point out real quick that we had a DAC meeting, and we did something different in our DAC meeting this time that was pretty phenomenal, and I thought it was very cool. Mrs. Wetstein, thank you for your Engage and Elevate during DAC. We talked about our UIPs, and during our UIP discussions, we breakout sessions where we did our own Engage and Elevate, where folks shared what it is that they applaud on the district on and things that they'd like to see. And there was some really valuable and genuinely good feedback that came from that. And I hope that we're able to take that and really put that to good use, and I think that we will. And then last but not least, I wanted to share that this past Saturday was the Colorado Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly. I am proud to say that D38's resolution on buying down the budget stabilization factor and getting rid of the factors that are used in the budget stabilization factor by 2024 was unanimously supported by the delegation. Our resolution on local control of monies there was some debate and some discussion, but it was strongly supported and passed. And our resolution on local control of programming and curriculum, there was a lot of discussion, valuable discussion, good feedback. That one passed a little narrower, 46 to 33, but all three of our resolutions passed, and there's some really interesting resolutions that came out of that. I would love to share that in a work session. There was resolutions on fully funding IDEA, but as is supposed to be from the federal government. There was resolutions on having developers pay more into education when we see a lot of new development throughout the state. There's just a lot of good. There was 33 resolutions, and if I can put that on a work session agenda to share out, that would be great. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
So first of all, Tiffany, great job on all that work. That is so important in getting the budget stabilization factor brought down. For those of you who don't understand it, it takes money directly out of our children's pockets and the schools that support them. So great work, very meaningful. I'm going to look at a few notes today as I go through some comments because there's a lot of facts. But I want to begin with a question for anybody except Dr. Frank, because I know you know the answer. So there's a famous saying in the hockey world about Wayne Gretzky and why he was so good. Anybody have an idea what it is? Close, but not correct. You're staying after school. Jackie? Exactly. They always said about him why he was one of the reasons he was so good was he skated to where the puck was going to be. And it was actually, ironically, not a coach or him, but it was his father who said that when he was a young rising star. What I'd like to do today is highlight a wonderful example of why I am so proud to be part of this team. An example of not just the value, but the raw results of skating where the puck is going to be. And also an example of what happens if you do nothing and the perils that come with it. So here's the context. About 30 months ago, right when COVID hit and the country was shutting down, this team had a meeting. It was May of 2020. We knew what was going to happen because we'd seen this kind of behavior in 2008. State revenues were doing this. And so our financing, our budgets were going to go down significantly. And we called a meeting, and Mr. Clausen was nice enough to find us a location where we could safely meet in Colorado Springs. And miraculously, Dr. Summers and the team found a way to actually find an extra $1.2 million that we could live without out of discretionary non-income spending. And by the way, I want to double check my notes here. That's nearly 15%. So if all of us think about how would we shave 15 points off our budget right now, that's very difficult to do. The board correctly asked a very hard question, and the question was something like this. Of all the things the team is thinking of, are we cutting too close to the bone? Are there any places where we're going to have significant student negative impact? And to the team's credit, they had the fortitude to step up and say, you know what? There's this national dynamic of a reduction in literacy rate that we're starting to see impact us. and it was in the very early stages. So we asked a few questions, and it turned out that we were starting to see a reduction in our K through 3 literacy rates, which means reading at grade level. Now, there's some magic at 3rd grade that happens, and everybody in the education world knows it, but those of us that don't spend our life in it, it's very, very important. You migrate from learning to read to reading to learn. And so those that are not at grade level and can't make that up quickly, the pack starts to move away from them. And of course, one's choices at graduation go from 20 or 30 or 40 to maybe 5 or 10 or 15. So this was important. The board quickly, decisively, and unanimously decided to pull $500,000 out of reserves to fund the program. These programs require a lot more than money. It required a significant investment during the middle of COVID from the staff to relearn how to do things, to take new curriculum and be trained and to shape it, and to make significant changes to save these kids. So here we are 30 months later, and we knew where that puck was beginning to move to, and we wanted to change the direction of it. So what has happened since then? We're now seeing an increase in literacy after a little under 2 years of nearly 20%. And that is if you take the swing of what we were seeing going down, it's nearly 30%. So it's very, very significant. First grade's moved from 50% of benchmark to 59%, or a swing really of 18%. And 2nd grade has done similar migration from 64 to 73% of benchmark, about 14%. Our practical goal in the district is to get to 80%. To give you some context, the average in the country is 37%. And actually, I heard on the radio today, the nation's report card just was published, and the numbers are down in the state and the nation, but not in District 38. So our goal is 80%, but the aspirational goal is to get them all there, or 100%. And that's what we shoot for here. By the way, our current levels are around 73%, so almost double the national average. So these are the results of being proactive and attempting to see where the puck's going and get there before it gets there. It's also why District 38 continues to achieve and excel and innovate. On the other side of this coin, I want to provide an example of the power of doing nothing. So I've made copies of an article out of the Wall Street Journal. And I don't have enough for everybody in the audience, but enough for the team. You can pass them down, and the senior staff, and a few for the audience. What's so important about this article is it's discussing an out-of-state school system, and when literacy declines and it's left to its organic trends, what horrible things can happen. And as a disclaimer, this comes out of the op-ed section of the journal. I do not profess to any of the conclusions in the article, but have attempted to simply highlight the facts. Chris, thank you for distributing the article. Finally, I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention for a couple reasons. We hold ourselves accountable to results, not efforts. The kids deserve it, the staff deserves it, and the staff put in the time to do it. And it shows how this team has a wonderful ability to drive measurable, sustainable, and impactful results. And also, and here's the important part, to incorporate it as part of the DNA of what we do every day for years and years and years. And that is the magic of the sustainment. And it is exactly what's yielded the consistent high standards and achievement levels that our students perform at. And that's why the district is rated highly, right? We measure what the students achieve. And so I wanted to stop and thank Dr. Summers and the team and the principals and the staffs for driving this. It really is a wonderful example of the power of passion, energy, and execution in critical areas. One final footnote, if you don't mind. In the spirit of fiscal transparency, Dr. Summers and the team found a way to achieve everything I just outlined without spending a penny of the allocated reserves. And that's what professionals do. They find a way to get it done without the pain. So you've saved our taxpayers $500,000 and achieved the results we asked you to achieve. Wonderful job.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Taylor. I want to thank Ms. Upchurch for her leadership and her comments, as well as Mr. Schwartz. And on the interest of time, I'm going to forego my comments, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you, Matt. I wanted to just express appreciation to the district administration again, because I feel a debt of gratitude to you all. Under Dr. Summers' leadership, we have really clarified a vision for the public education system. And I note, and I've had a lot of people tell me they see this as well, and that is that you walk the talk. And that's so important in this day and age. So I appreciate our district administration and all they do that supports this public education system that is here for and behalf of our children. And so that's all I wanted to share tonight. Dr. Summers, it's up to your superintendent update.
Well, thank you all. Those are some very humbling remarks, and it's an honor to continue to lead and serve and do so with a fantastic team. And as you heard earlier this evening, we have fantastic leaders throughout our schools. And I would extend that not just to the formal positions of those in authority, but really to each and every one of our staff members who show up every day and do the hard work and continue to dedicate all of what they have to each and every one of our kiddos. And I would say having the opportunity to be in some schools as of late and some different activities, our students are also exemplifying what it means to be outstanding leaders. So we do have a few updates that we'd like to share with you this evening. I'm going to roll through these fairly expeditiously, not to diminish at all the significance of each of these. We had a Lewis Palmer Middle School staff member, Josefina Ramos, who recently earned her U.S. citizenship. And there was a party that was held in the library where we were able to celebrate with Josefina. But even more pronounced, if you have not had the chance, is to read a recent article in the Tribune. It was last week's edition, who was written by our very own student at Lewis Palmer Middle School, Aurora Rory Monroe, with support from Mr. Daniel Russell in his publications class. So just a real special and touching story and tribute, and congratulations to Josefina. We've had numerous fun runs and fundraisers at all of our D38 elementary schools. So we wanted to thank all of our families for supporting our schools and the wonderful work done. These funds meet specific goals that each of our schools have, and we're just appreciative of all the work that goes into that. And you can see just a small picture, an example of some of the smiles and other faces that our kids like to demonstrate. So really, really happy to share that. We have a concert season that is in full swing. So on October 20th, there was a combined LP and PR jazz concert at the Tri-Lakes Center for the Arts. I also wanted to just spotlight briefly the joint Lewis Palmer High School Wind Symphony, Cheyenne Mountain High School Symphonic Band, and the Palmer Ridge High School Wind Ensemble with guest conduction by Dr. Kenneth Singleton, Professor Emeritus from the University of Northern Colorado. If you haven't had a chance to hear our bands as of late, it's a real treat. Just very privileged to have outstanding music programming in our district. We also have, as an extension of that musical programming, 2 upcoming musical productions, including Lewis Palmer High School's production of Newsies, which is later this week, October 27th through the 29th. And then right around the corner from there, Palmer Ridge will be producing The Little Mermaid, so November 10th through 12th. If you have a chance, highly encourage you to spend some time and see all the great work from our cast and crew. We have had, as we typically find ourselves in the middle of different sports seasons, this happens to be our fall sports season. So our Palmer Ridge High School softball team made the tournament, and our very own coach, Jason Romero, was honored as the Coach of the Year for the 2nd consecutive year. So while they did fall short in their Friday match, fantastic season, and kudos to that team. We also, in a spirit of coach accomplishment and recognition, have our very own Palmer Ridge football head coach, Mike Armentrout, who was named the Broncos Coach of the Week back on October 14th. Our Bears, if you have not taken note, are currently firing on all cylinders and are ranked number 1 in classification 4A, undefeated, 9-0. And I did not make a slide for every team here, but I did want to give a quick shout out to both boys soccer teams from LP and PR have qualified for the state tournament. So I believe LP will be hosting this Thursday. Palmer Ridge will be on the road. We wish them both luck. We have 2 volleyball teams, both in the top 10 of the state, and are performing admirably as they finish up their regular seasons and are starting to round into postseason shape. And can give a special note to both schools as they hosted 2 very fun rivalry games as of late, and if you haven't had a chance to go to one of those, I would highly encourage that. Our Palmer Ridge and Lewis Palmer field hockey team has qualified for state. I believe they'll be playing later this week. And we also have several qualifiers for cross country as well as previously boys golf. So just a big shout out to all of our student athletes as they are rounding the corner through the fall sports season. We have a few presentations tonight, but before I get to that, I did want to do a quick shout out, and Andy and Nate are both here from our construction programs. I'm going to give them the mic just for a couple minutes. I got to keep so Andy's like, I'll take the mic. But Andy Vries, Nate Stricker, if you just stand up. Both of these teachers have been doing some really excellent work with our students, and they're just going to spotlight a couple of things. So thank you for being here tonight, both of you.
Sorry, this is probably the last time 15, 20 years ago since I've been to a board meeting when I was getting my type D, and no, I don't want to be an administrator. I just wanted to say thank you to the board for allowing us to get this construction CTE thing going. I know when we started this 4 years ago, there were several people that said this district will never have a construction CTE. It's too expensive, we don't have the space, how's it going to work? And look at us now. We have 3 classes of construction at Lewis Palmer running, and 1 just started at PR. We started an after-school construction program at the middle school last year, which was really successful. I hate talking in front of adults. I'd rather talk in front of kids all day long. I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve like our fearless principal, Bridget, and when I get nervous, I get emotional. As far as our construction program goes, I really wanted to say thank you for the building, and I don't know if Chris Coulter is here. There he is in the back. But he's been awesome this year as a new facilities manager and setting us up with our new build space. It was made like today when the weather was like crummy out. I was like, man, I get to work in the sun instead on the back side of the building where it's shaded and then there's still snow over there. To be able to work in that space. And if you haven't got a chance to come over to the old senior center portable, our second year construction kids are remodeling that whole space, putting new floors, probably windows, sidings, everything. So it's going great. And that's all because you guys kind of signed off and said, yes, we'll trust you on this and let you work with it. Over the last 3.5 years, I think we've had over 40 kids get certifications in construction. Just in my program alone, I know working with Nate now, There'll be more as we continue to grow the program. It's also in the kids. It's not just us that are doing it. The kids need this. If you look at state results, national results, about 50% of kids go to a four-year college. What are we doing for those other 40, 50%? 35, 33% of those kids graduate from a four-year college. So I think this opportunity is just awesome, and thank you for the opportunity to run the program.
I was mostly here for moral support for Andy, but I would also like to echo just thank you for your support. And this is year one at Palmer Ridge, and it's been great getting to collaborate with Andy and just learn from the successes that he's had at his program at LP. And we're really excited to offer the program at Palmer Ridge, and just thank you for your continued support.
Can I say one more thing? I post all of my stuff on Nextdoor occasionally throughout the year to just let the community know what we're doing. And I always love reading the results. I've never had a negative comment from anybody in the 4 years I've been doing it. This year in the fall, I posted all the stuff we're doing, and a lady named Kelly wrote, "I so wish something like this program would have existed when I was in high school. I love your updates so much. It's awesome and amazing what these kids are learning to do. Lifelong skills and a fantastic foundation for future learning and skills to build upon. I hope your program continues to grow and more kids can join in and learn. Even if they don't plan to stay in construction, just having basic skills and knowledge to do basic repairs in the future would be so helpful. I wish this was a required class for all kids." So important. And then last one, another quote, "Happiness does not come from a job. It comes from knowing what you truly value and behaving in a way that's consistent with those beliefs." And that was Mike Rowe.
Thanks,
Mr. Vries and Mr. Stricker. And well done. When we have the opportunity, board, to spend some time at either of our schools, I think it's always a highlight to swing by those construction classes and really see our students in action. So thank you both for what you do in that space. I have one more spotlight, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Alicia Welch from Prairie Winds to come forward while Mr. Belcher cues a quick video. So one of the things that we did previously prior to the pandemic is we had, if you recall, demonstrations of learning. We found it difficult to really organize these in a manner that is able to accommodate an entire school, including staff, students, parents, etc. So what we thought we would do, and Alicia was kind enough to be kind of the first test run for this, is we wanted to spotlight some of what's happening in our schools through the lens. This particular spotlight is going to showcase an assembly, recent assembly last Wednesday at Prairie Winds Elementary School, and both Ms. Upchurch and I had the opportunity to actually be part of this assembly. We weren't necessarily completely prepared for that, but we were up to the task, I think it's fair to say. So prior to showing the video here, I'm going to ask Ms. Welch to just spend a few moments sharing with us a little bit more. So thanks for being here, Alicia, and look forward to hearing what you have to say.
All right, happy to do it. So since we've been open, Prairie Winds has always been a responsive classroom school. It's a big part of who we are and what we really feel is important in teaching our kids to be great citizens. We focus a lot on how to treat each other respectfully, how to be kind, how to be a contributor in a conversation, and really gives every child a voice in the classroom through like a morning meeting structure. What I noticed over the course of the last few years is that while we used the strategies well in the classrooms, there was some room for growth when it came to school-wide practices. So when it came to areas such as how kids behave at recess, how kids behave in the cafeteria, how they behave in the hallway, that was a big one, and just how they behave in the bathroom, for instance, we really wanted to really look at if we could improve in those school-wide areas. So last year we formed a committee, and it was actually part of our strategic plan. I think it's priority 2. It's a priority too, I think. Okay, I should have written that down, but it was just some of our strategic plan work, and we formed a committee, really looked at responsive classroom practices and what we could do to improve in this specific area. The committee came up with some ideas, presented them to the staff, and then to our BAC and PTO just shared with the community some of the ideas. And what we came up with was that in order for our kids to really be accountable for behaving well, we as staff members had to model appropriate behavior. We really wanted to generate some enthusiasm, excitement, and focus for RC school-wide. So we have monthly assemblies, which is what you'll see a little of, and that was something that Prairie Winds did before. So this is not a new concept, we just brought it back. And then each morning during our morning announcements, I talk about an area of the building that we're focusing on, making sure that we're just doing a great job of showing respect. So for instance, in the hallway, we'll remind them, and we come back to that area every 5 weeks, so it's not just talked about once and forgotten. Just remind them that as an open concept building, and actually just a school in general, it's really good to think about how our actions impact other people. So if we aren't calm and quiet and respectful in the hallway, kids hear it and can be distracted by it, and so can adults. So we're just trying to be responsible and good contributors to the school. So this assembly that you'll see is focused on showing kindness around the building, and you'll see, I don't know exactly what Mark has cut, but we had a couple different demonstrations done by kids. There was a little situation that the kids got to teach about like how to behave and be a good friend out on the playground, how to be a good friend when in the lunchroom, and letting people sit by you. And there was one other one, and I know that I'm going to forget which one it was. Was it you did the jump rope? You did the lunchroom, and there was one more. So we'll see if that surprise one is what you see, but hopefully you enjoy. Thank you.
Spoiler alert, it's not, and we took a 20-minute presentation and trimmed it down to 2 minutes. So I apologize, Ms. Upchurch, your piece is not in there, but I do have it if you'd ever like to see it. So.
My week of the month is kindness. I've been in a few classrooms and we've been talking about what it means to be kind to others, be kind to ourselves, and we're going to make some examples today of what that might look like over here at Prairie Winds. He is outside at recess, but Dr. Summers is on the buddy bench. So, will you please have a seat right over here? Now, Prairie Winds Fox, it is kind of silly to watch that, but how does it make you feel when you're the one on the buddy bench and that happens? Does not feel great. So, your 6th grade pay kids are going to show you the right way, the kind way to handle this. Eyes on them.
Dr. Summers is quiet all by himself. We should go run in the play. Yeah. Do you want to come play with us? Sure.
So the focus of the assembly was kindness. Can you guys all wave to say thank you to Mrs. Weaver and Mrs. Dukes for putting that on? All right, and can you guys wave like a really big thank you to Dr. Summers and Mrs. Upchurch for coming? All right, it's time to go.
Were there any questions for Mrs. Welch, or are we going to let the video speak for itself and let you have your evening? Well, before you leave, Mrs. Welch, I would just say that your staff showing the level of intention that you all are, and the positive energy and how your students are able to support each other in this effort is just something to be commended. So thank you very much. Yep. Take care. Have a great night.
I personally had no idea I was going to be dancing when I showed up. but it was fun, and I applaud the amount of kindness and energy that the students displayed. It's good.
Thank you
stuff.
for being there, Mrs. Upchurch. Appreciate that. Okay, and without further ado, I think there was one more slide, but I'm just going to tee it up this way. We've got a few presentations tonight, and that's going to segue into our folks from Monument Academy that are joining us. So, Mr. Taylor, thanks.
Yes. Agenda item C1, Monument Academy, the annual report. We've got Mark Brocklehurst, Board President Ryan Graham, and some others. Do you want to come up and introduce everyone? And
yeah, absolutely. So this is our CFO, Mark Brocklehurst, and then that's my board vice president, Lindsay Clinton, but she lucked out. She doesn't have a chair up here, so she's gonna be the two. You can have mine. I'm teasing. I know you guys offered it, but.
before you get started, if you don't mind, I couldn't help but think on your presentation, Dr. Summers, when it said that Palmer Ridge High School was ranked #1 on 4A in 4A. It just made me think about the campaign. I know you don't campaign, and you didn't set it up to be a part of that classification 4A, did you?
There was no pun intended in that,
very
in that
good,
statement.
very good.
However, now that you pointed that out, Mr. Taylor, I fully appreciate the connection.
And then I also happen to appreciate the construction educator saying he posted on Nextdoor and had no negative comments. That's pretty amazing.
Maybe we could learn something.
It must have something to do with building, right? All right, please.
I want to say thank you to the school board for having us out here and having the chance to walk through the annual report, and to Dr. Summers as well. So I'm just going to do my best to walk through the annual report for you. My first time kind of doing this, so bear with me as some of the information here is new to my world, but I'll definitely do my best to do it justice. Our recent UIP plan that's been sent in from our both locations. I'll just go over some of the primary school challenges that they identified, and that was some growth in math and the English language arts. Some of the root causes identified there were teachers' ability to utilize data-driven instructional techniques, and then teacher retention. Some of the improvement strategies that they decided to work towards is better utilization of the data to drive instruction, and then to work to bring teachers in that provide an opportunity for them to grow and develop and find good work at MA. Challenges for our secondary school in terms of growth and are due to growth in math and evidence-based reading and writing. Root causes, again, teacher ability to use data-driven instructional techniques. They also cited regular curriculum review as a need to keep working towards, and instructional alignment. Strategies that they've will be implementing, again, are to utilize the data to drive instruction. Also develop a curriculum framework for math, conduct curriculum reviews, and adopt a research-based instructional pedagogy. In terms of student enrollment, student enrollment as of this October count for pre-K through 11th grade, we're looking at 1,190 students. In terms of full-time equivalents, we're sitting at 1,111 students. You'll notice in your report in September, we were estimating about 1,120 at that point. After October count, 1,111 is kind of where we sit. In terms of number of gifted students at the school are sitting at 67 throughout K through 11. About 2/3 of those are in middle school. Exceptional students, we're sitting at about 76. And our ELL student count is 42. Some other concerns with regards to student achievements and some of the things we're doing to address those. Last year we brought on a director of academics to help ensure a return to foundational academic program that we've promised to our parents. She's been working hard with teachers, sitting in on classes and working to help develop skills and also assist with curriculum review. We're reviewing our middle school math curriculum to determine if it's meeting the needs of our students and allowing that transition from middle school to high school. And we're also reviewing the literature scope and sequence in middle school and high school to eliminate any gaps or overlaps that are currently in that. In terms of planned changes in instructional offerings, this past year, MA revised the administrative structure overseeing our ESS program. So now our ESS team at each campus works to support students while reporting to the respective principals. I want to publicly thank Mr. Frampton and D38's ESS coordinators for their guidance and support and leadership as we've worked through that transition. We've used our Colorado Charter School Program grant to support a PE curriculum, or sorry, PE electives with the purchase of some weight equipment and yoga equipment. That's a new offering that's coming up, as well as other curriculum for the high school. In terms of policy changes on the year, we had our board of directors, MA board of directors, tasked the governance committee to take a year-long look at our policies, and they've spent the past year really diving into those, making some corrections and adjustments. We've included a link in the report that leads to our website, allows you a chance to kind of look at those if so desired. In terms of our reserve status, this year we're anticipating an increase in reserves of about 600,000, and that's an unaudited number at this point. Last year we were sitting at 2.5 million in reserves, so that would mean for fiscal 22 we'd be sitting at about 3.1 million in reserves. In terms of capital needs for facilities, anything over $25,000. Our secondary campus is close to capacity. We've been exploring beginning phase 2 at that campus. Some cost projections for that expansion, which would ideally include an academic wing for the high school, which is about 16 to 20 classrooms, a full-size gymnasium, and an athletic field would run around 12 to 15 million. Given the current climate, we're trying to be realistic with where we could actually end up getting financing. We're projecting that at a minimum we'd probably need about 5 million, and it would likely go towards a gymnasium at this time as we look to assess where our greatest need for growth and enticing students to come in. In terms of extracurricular activities, our middle school athletics has had a very successful start to the year. Our girls volleyball team is part of the Central Colorado Athletic League, and they placed first in that league. Our boys football team, also part of that league, placed first in their championship. Our boys and girls cross-country teams also having a great year, or had a great year. I guess they've wrapped up as well. A first and second place finish there for them. for high school athletics. They've been competing in cross country and track during the 21-22 school year. And we're looking into the process of applying at CHASA. And for the life of me, I can't remember what that stands for. Colorado High School Athletic Association, I believe. Anyway, we're working towards that. An official application would need to be submitted in January. Then lastly, just to finish on kind of the relationship as we've seen it. I'll speak for myself. I've been here coming up on 4 years, and in that time, I felt that the interaction with the district and with Dr. Summers has been phenomenal from my point of view. The continued collaboration in identifying ways that we can work together and continue to support each other, I've seen continually develop. I appreciate the reach out. Mrs. Upchurch, you mentioned a little while ago wanting to get back into walking through the schools and taking part in those extracurricular activities, and we're excited to have you, as well as anyone else who would like to join. But we appreciate the professionalism and the support that we've received, and look forward to many future years of growth and support. And that's all I've got from this report.
Thank you very much. I would. Is there anything that anything further that we aren't doing that we might be able to assist with?
I'm happy to engage that question. I just wanted to recognize the fact that Mark Brocklehurst is here as our acting COO tonight, and his full-time role is CFO. So we are very thankful for his time, the commitment that he has put in to step into that role, being that is outside of his wheelhouse. So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that. So thank you for being here tonight, Mark, and presenting that report. To answer your question, I'll step back to one of the public comments tonight. The fact that D38 came out to Monument Academy East for a town hall style format and allowed our constituency to engage in those types of questions, I felt that was extremely promising for the nature of the relationship that is continuing to evolve and develop. I've been on this board now for 3 years, and I've seen a tremendous amount of growth between our respective programs. I mean, anybody that's been in this community for some time understands there's been challenges and things that have been said between the respective entities, and our hope is that we can build and grow from this. And being here tonight and having the warm reception back there and having an opportunity to engage with each of you in conversation and talk about the future, we are excited about that, and we thank you for that, and we hope to continue this. And we're open to any questions that any of you may have tonight in regards to the annual report or anything else we can answer for you.
Thank you very much. Matt, can I just start with you and come down the row and see if you guys have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. First of all, thank you for being here tonight. It's always good to see our friends from Monument Academy. Great presentation, and appreciate you pitch hitting and for your effort in putting this together.
Thank you.
It's so important that our parents and our kids have choices. Public education's been around over a century. There are no industries that old that don't offer choices. So our partnership matters deeply, right? It's not just for us. It's not at all for us. It's for our kids who are the future of our country. So we're committed to helping it be successful. I'm sure each of us are, but I'm happy to speak for us if you don't mind. More to Chris's point, are there some things that this body can do that would assist in your maturation, your success, moving forward. And if you want to think about it, that's fine too. But I think it's important that we work in that regard so we can continue to do things that are in the best interest of the whole community and that make you successful, and you do things that make us successful, and we move forward together.
You know, right off the top, the way I would answer that question is this, you know, having the line of communication open. When our chief operating officer resigned, Dr. Summers, Ms. Wetstein, myself, and Lindsay Clinton, our board vice president, sat down, had a conversation, and said, let's talk through some of the stuff. There were some things that ultimately we as a board probably wouldn't be privy to, only because of our positions. That's not our role. But to open up that dialogue with Dr. Summers and have that conversation, I thought was something that essentially is moving us in the right direction. And my ask to your question would be this: I would hope that we can continue that line of communication. There will come a point where we have a new chief operating officer. I don't know when that will be. We're having further discussion around that as a board. But in the interim, the time being, we do have Mark Brocklehurst that is glad to engage. Myself in the role that I am in as the board president, very happy to engage and have these conversations. Tiffany Upchurch has very much been instrumental in providing phone calls, updates, and I would like to, you know, continue to grow that dialogue that we've been having, you know, amongst our respective boards. Like we're on the right track. It may just simply be the answer to your question, just growing that and building more, because I wholeheartedly agree that our parents in this district have a choice, and we want to support that choice. MA is not right for everybody. D38 is not right for everybody, but we have those options, and parents can make that decision, and that is the fundamental value and principle that we support and uphold at Monument Academy. So if we can continue down that trajectory and continue on that path, we're all in for that.
Thanks, Ron. Tiffany?
I'm just going to say what's already been said again. Each of our schools in our school district are different and offer different opportunities, and they each have their own culture and their own students and their own teachers. And there's something fantastic and unique about having a school district where we're all in this together, right? Where these are all of our kids. I've said this all the time, but I'm just going to continue to say it. These are all of our kids, and these are all of our teachers and our staff, and we live next door to each other. We dine in the same restaurants. We go to church in the same churches. Our kids play the same sports. So having that opportunity that we as a community, this is our community, Monument Academy is our community's charter school, and that we continue to honor and elevate those choices that our families have in our community, I think is important, and that we want to continue to elevate that relationship with Monument Academy. And I personally, since I've been on the board in the past 5 years, have also seen a lot of growth in that collaboration between boards and organizations. And so I applaud that, and I thank you. And I want to remind anybody, we've been trying to with our DAC meetings, we want to see more community participation and more community attendance at our district accountability and advisory committees. Our next one is actually November 15th, and it's at Monument Academy East for our next DAC meeting. And the only question I would ask, because I was thinking about this when I was looking through this, is I congratulate you guys on applying for your CHASA membership. So as you're applying for your CHASA membership, is there any particular activities or sports or extracurriculars that your parents and students have shown an interest in or are requesting or looking into?
I'm going to put my board vice president on the spot here. She actually has a better pulse on that question than I will.
There's a microphone right there.
I'll just go here. I don't have specifics on that, but just listening to the questions here, I'd love to take the question about what levels of support we could utilize and use this relationship to really come together. I'd love to take that back to our board, but also our SAC committees, and really get a good pulse on that, and then be able to come back to you guys with detailed answers to that. Because that is an important question, and I think we could really build our relationship that way as well. The reception you guys had with us beforehand, that was a great way for us to have that communication. So I'd love to continue having those kinds of gatherings as well, get more of our board members here too, host you guys at our school. But I would like to provide details to the question that multiple board members have asked, and then in the sports as well. I think we're still trying to form a team, one team for our CHAS membership. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but we can certainly come back to you with those details, and I can follow up on that, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Clinton. So we'll get back to you on that. To be continued.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed and applaud the communication and the openness that if I pick up the phone and ask a question, or send an email, somebody's always willing and quick to share and respond. So thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Teresa, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, just a comment. Actually, Mr. Graham, I wanted to thank you for presenting and initiating the joint resolution that our board unanimously agreed upon last Monday as well. And I listened to the town hall, and as you alluded to previous years and, over the decades, I think that the strides made recently are an indication of a really positive collaboration that can move forward. That will ultimately positively impact all of our kids in the district. So thank you for your initiation on that on our behalf.
Thank you, Mrs. Phillips. And I will say we are thankful that after that town hall, you guys called a special meeting and supported that resolution. And, obviously Monument Academy has publicly supported and endorsed 4A, and we're excited to see what happens on November 8th. And we just thank you again for coming and speaking to our constituency. That was critical, that was paramount in many respects. And that is the type of dialogue that we hope to see continue with just that openness within the community. So thank you for that.
Well, let me conclude with my appreciation for the invite to be there. I appreciated the town hall approach where we actually opened it up for discussion rather than presentation. We learned a lot. There are some interesting ideas that were presented that will in time flesh out. But most importantly, I want to express this. Your board presented a proposed joint resolution, and when I read it, it was like, yeah, that's what I was thinking. So that tells me it was right. After all the conversation and all of the efforts that led up to that, when I read it, it was like, yep, that makes sense. Yep, that makes sense. And I was thrilled that we're on the same page. So thank you again for hosting this, and more importantly, for proposing that joint resolution, which we've obviously subsequently unanimously approved. And it is really about our teachers, all of our teachers. And I think Brett has said this on a number of occasions. He just thinks of it being 12 or 10 buildings, right? It's not just, neighborhood schools versus charter schools. It's 10 schools. And I like that. That's the way we want to think. And so, again, choice is good. I appreciate all the comments from our board tonight. We thank you, and for double duty, double thank you. And thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
guys. You guys are actually a part of our second agenda item on the UIPs, but we're good. Our next agenda item is C2, District Unified Improvement Plan Review and Approval. I'd like to make a motion to approve the Lewis Palmer School District 38 and District Unified Improvement Plans as recommended by the D38 administration for submission to the Colorado Department of Education.
Second.
Before we call roll, Assistant Superintendent Amber Wetstein will present this part of our agenda.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you an update on our school improvement planning process, which is really ongoing all of the time. So the documents that we are asking you to approve this evening are documents as they are today, but this work will continue after the approval of these documents as we are always striving to improve our processes. A little reminder about the Unified Improvement Planning process. Districts are required to submit these plans at least every 2 years because all of our schools are designated at a performance level. We do have the option to submit these plans every 2 years versus every 1 year. And our principals did give us very good feedback last year when we used our local strategic planning template in place of the state's document. And so we would propose that as we continue to experience high performance, that we would submit these state documents every other year. We also had a change in timeline this year. In the past, these plans were due to the State Department in the spring. That timeline has shifted to October beginning this year. And the templates really are to serve many state and federal regulations. And so things like the READ Act requirements that we have, as well as our federal title programs, all fall within this document. However, we have chosen to tweak our process a bit this year to better align with our district strategic plan. So while the plan is intended to meet state and federal requirements, we are adopting it as a way for schools and at the district level to showcase the action steps we are taking aligned with the board's priorities. And it also aligns with policy AED, which includes our accreditation process for schools. So just a reference again to our strategic plan, and you'll notice that the district unified improvement plan along with school plans all are very aligned with priorities 1, 2, and 3, those priorities that are really the school-based priorities. Did you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
I appreciate you referencing our board policy that supports this state statute requirement as well. But the question I really have is, it's parents, DAC. I mean, there's a lot of people involved in this process. Can you summarize, if you could, the level of engagement this process is within our community?
Yes, I appreciate that question. When you look at these plans, they really began to be developed this time last school year. So all throughout last school year, principals were engaging their school accountability committees, their staff in planning these actions around the strategic plan. And then that planning has evolved and ultimately resulted in the plans you see before you this evening, and they will continue to evolve with that continuous feedback from our community, our staff, and our parents. Ms. Upchurch referenced the recent DAC meeting that we had where we asked for feedback on our plan, and I'll share on an upcoming slide what some of that feedback looked like, and we'll continue to consider those great ideas as we plan forward. So a very high-level overview of what the plans entail as far as priority 1. We want to create a safe, healthy, and welcoming school environment and a sense of belonging and support. You'll see action steps and metrics related to that. We also want to make sure our staff members have training, resources, and support so that we can cultivate a strong sense of community in our schools. And you saw a snapshot of that with Ms. Welch's assembly this evening. And finally, we are focusing on training for staff and students as well as families this year on safe, healthy, and welcoming schools. And metrics we plan to provide you throughout the year are results on safety and discipline, as well as a student culture survey, which we are bringing in-house this year. For priority 2, we want to continue to provide a high quality learning experience for every student, and that's from preschool all the way until graduation. And we align our curriculum with the Colorado academic standards. We do want to provide a balanced yet academically rigorous program for our students with multiple pathways for post-secondary success. And we are continuing to develop, as you all participated in recently, the development of a portrait of a D38 graduate as well as an educator, and we're excited to bring those results to you soon. We'll continue to provide you updates on our academic performance and growth results. We will be reporting to you on readiness indicators, such as the percentage of students ready for kindergarten, or as Mr. Schwartz referenced tonight, third grade reading scores are an excellent readiness indicator, as well as SAT scores. And then looking closely at our matriculation rates, which are the results of students choosing some type of post-secondary education immediately after high school. And finally, priority 3, we will continue to develop our instructional coaching and mentorship programs. We are continuing to support professional learning communities district-wide, both at the school level and then cross-district, bringing folks like the career and technical education teachers you heard from this evening together so that they can collaborate across schools. And we will continue to provide high quality professional development for our teachers and our leaders and our staff. And we will also be continuing to use My Voice, which is a staff survey tool to gauge the engagement of our employees. And we are also working to reduce the turnover rates of our employees as well. We asked the DAC to provide us feedback about what they liked in the plan, and then also what should we consider that we may not have considered yet. And here you see some examples of the considerations that they asked us to think about. They asked us to consider a parent survey in addition to staff and student surveys. They asked for more parent education about the character education programs that we provide, and they wanted us to continue to develop partnerships with our local responders. In the category of priority 2, they would really, our families wanted to know how we are utilizing our professional development days. They want to know what teachers are collaborating on during that professional learning community time. They also would love to see summer programming expanded. They want all pathways at the high school levels elevated. That's both students who are on path to begin a career as well as those headed to college. And they would like some more information about the assessments that we give during the school day. Finally, in priority 3, they want to continue to provide time for teachers to collaborate and plan for curriculum and instruction. One consideration was to change the names of positions that we are looking to hire. Paraprofessional, for example, could be confusing to the average household if they aren't familiar with the education lingo, and that was an idea for potentially recruiting community members for some of our open positions. And finally, they want to continue to provide time for mentors to work with our newer teachers and staff. I had not planned to go through each of the school plans, but I wanted to highlight the work that they are prioritizing within the strategic plan areas. And so you can take a look at each of the schools, including Monument Academy, which aligns closely with District 38's priorities as well. I'm happy to answer any questions or entertain any discussion that you would like to have.
Teresa, any comments or questions?
No, not yet. Thank you.
Tiffany?
I'll just, real quick, the engagement in this process, if you get a chance to ever witness it, it's at our back meetings at each of our buildings, our parents are really engaged along with the principals and the teachers. And it really is a collaborative effort in taking deeper dives into what our test scores look like and what their students in each of their buildings need to succeed. And so it's very meaningful work that goes into this.
Thank you. Ron?
None, thank you.
Matt?
And Mr. Taylor, thank you.
Amber, I would just say that the presentation itself reflects in some parts the answer to my question, but I just wanted to hear, that this is an ongoing long-term. It's not just a project that we check the box. This is at the core of education.
Yes, and even though we do have to submit these plans on whatever timeline we're required, the planning continues, the monitoring continues, and we're really following that Plan, Do, Study, Act process because we want to continue our journey towards excellence.
Excellent. Thank you. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to agenda item C3, first reading, policy revisions, BEDH, public participation at the school board meetings. Mark Belcher will present for a first reading.
I'm back. All right, so I will kick this off by just reading some of the red line text from BEDH. We have two sections that are amended in this red line version. In the third paragraph, we have added and stricken some text, and the new text reads, "Any person wishing to speak at a board meeting shall sign up digitally by providing their full name, affiliation that grants eligibility, street address, telephone number, email address, and the topic by no later than noon on the day of a regular board meeting and by noon the day before a special board meeting using the sign-up link found on the Board of Education section of the district website, lewispalmer.org/Board of Ed." And we removed up on sign up on a list located by the entrance of the boardroom. Further down, we have added the definition of eligibility to register for public comment. This is just codifying what already exists, and it is the board defines eligibility to register for public comment as the following: residents of the district, parents of students currently enrolled in the district, current and former students of the district, current district staff members, and individuals invited by the board or the superintendent or designee to address the board on a topic. Are there any questions?
Yes.
Great.
Why would we eliminate the sign up at the door here of our public meeting?
So we're already on a path of providing the opportunity to sign up digitally. So we have the ability to register a digital public comment. The ability to sign up online would, we think, broaden board public comment to additional people. We think it would remove some maybe minor intimidation factor of having to sign up in person and seeing other people who are registered. And it would also allow for people to plan maybe a hair better as well. So,
But does it have to be one or the other? Why can't it be both?
So I do think it's important to speak to a bigger why here. And while our public comments and commenters at, as many board meetings as I can think about, have almost always, if not 100% across the board, been D38 constituents. What we have been alerted to by other districts, and it's something that I think it just bears some mention and some forewarning, is that there seems to be an effort from certain individuals to flood board meetings in local districts that are not the constituents of that local district. So the bigger why is this gives us a procedure that would enable and empower us to ensure that those that are signing up are actually our residents. So again, hasn't necessarily been an issue for us, could potentially be one in the future, and I think that's really what this is born out of. We don't want to create difficulty for our residents, parents, staff, community members to provide comment. We just want to create a process that really is the why behind this. Create a process that enables us to ensure that those that are speaking in front of us are actually our residents. Is that a fair summation?
Yeah, and I
Mr.
think
Belcher?
there are additional added benefits, like we could even create a program to remind those who have signed up that the board meeting will take place that evening, among others. So-
But I do think it bears mention, and Mr. Taylor, I don't want to infer too much into your comment, but does this potentially create a difficulty for individuals who may sign up, who may desire to sign up as early as the night of a meeting or upon physical arrival to a meeting? I think that's an important dimension that bears consideration as well.
Well, not only that, but not everybody has digital access yet. I mean, we assume everybody does, but that's not necessarily the case. My concern with this is, I in my own mind, I'm still struggling with why does it have to be one or the other? Why can't it be both? And let's add the new features, which are all excellent, but let's continue with what has been working that we've really not had any issues with. And then over time, perhaps reconsider. But to me, I would still feel that I want to be as open as possible.
So let me just speak to that one more example that could potentially emerge. So in the event that there may be constituents, well, I don't know that that's even the appropriate term. If there are individuals who are not of our district, who desire to provide comment at a board meeting, and the manner in which they sign up for it is the same procedure that we have, there's a risk that we will be hearing from individuals who again do not reflect our local population. There's just no way to vet and to ensure. Anybody could come, anybody could sign up. There's no check and balance to putting down an address that may not be in our system. That's just a reality of the current procedure that we have set forth.
Ron?
Ultimately, this is a vetting mechanism, yes?
Yes.
Okay. The vetting mechanism appears to be valid and necessary because we've probably all seen reports on the news or read things where there are individuals that want to yield an influence across a broad area. And the idea of public comments in the district realm is to make it of our constituencies, correct?
Absolutely. We desire to hear from our local public, not necessarily public that goes beyond our boundaries.
Based on that, and based on the fact that it's important to have a vetting mechanism, is there any reason we couldn't, at least for the immediate future, do that vetting mechanism for those that choose or don't have the capacity to sign up digitally? Could they provide proof of residency?
We're open to what that might look like. It is, as currently constructed, probably not within the amount of time that, at this point, we take signups all the way up until Ms. Wood goes over to the sheet and picks it up, at which point we don't really have the ability to check it right on the spot.
But we could maybe make an adjustment, is my point. And if you have to provide proof digitally, you have to come up with something that says you're a constituent, whether it's a lease contract, a driver's license, something to prove it, right? A voter registration card, whatever it is. My point is if I register online to do this, you still need to vet me. You just have some time.
Correct. Yeah.
So now the issue is you have to bring physical proof. And if we say you have to do it an hour before the meeting or something, then we at least provide those that aren't comfortable doing it digitally the opportunity to be part of our community, which they are.
Yeah, and we're open to a potentially efficient way of doing so. I don't know that just in our initial conversations
My
about
only
that, we've
concern
come
on
up
the-
with that efficient
Right.
process.
My only concern on the con side would really be for Mr. Coates, is if there's a large group that tries to come in and do something, for lack of a more elegant term, that we might deem as nefarious. Do we have the capacity to control that group for the safety of others, right?
That is a very worthy question.
That would be the only negative. But on the positive, since we hardly ever run into this, we're providing our citizenry with the agility that they've likely earned.
Yeah, I appreciate we can talk about it openly like this. That's where we sit with this. That is our only desire, because again, we're trying to balance, I think, what Mr. Taylor is summarized quite well. We have a process that seems to be working fine for now. I think we're just preparing ourselves for the possibility that it could be more difficult at some future meeting.
Matt, do you have any comments or questions?
I do not.
Teresa, do you have any comments or questions?
I do. I have two. First, I concur with some of the concerns you brought up, both Chris and Ron, and I'd like to add to that. First, I have a question. I think there might be some thought behind the time frame that's incorporated there. It says noon on the day of a regular board meeting, noon the day before a special board meeting. Can you elaborate on what thought went into that?
I think anticipating that for a special meeting, you may, especially if you're allowing comment at a special meeting, you may have additional signups. So providing additional time to staff to vet. But it could be, if there's comfortability with making it the same time frame, we sure could. One additional factor is a special meeting could be called at any time. So the recent Monday special meeting is a good example, first thing in the morning. So this policy in that case would have allowed for the time to vet if we were accepting public comment.
Okay, I would just, as we work through this, want to make it as easy and fluid for the public to make comment as possible. And to that point, I think, as we think about this, we might want to think about a phase-in. Like if we are changing it, this is sort of a substantial change. And if we're going to do that, perhaps we, allow in-person signups as well as digital signups until the end of the year or the end of 2022 or whenever we implement this, allow a few months of overlap, just to add to the conversation that's already at hand.
Absolutely agree.
Thank you, Teresa.
I have thought.
Go ahead.
So, first of all, I can appreciate the desire to ensure that our constituents and our parents and community are having a voice at the forefront. But in full transparency, I have to share that if we were voting on this today, I'd vote no. I'm struggling with several parts of it. Signing up by no later than noon on the day of, we don't release our board docs until Thursday or Friday. So if you've got somebody that's out on vacation or somewhere else, we're now asking our constituency to take time out of their weekend and their family time to make sure that they've looked over the documents to make sure that they can get into that noon time deadline, when some folks may not have a chance to look at our information until midway through a Monday and then comment. So I feel like this actually could potentially limit voices instead of trying to open it up to local voices. And as you pointed out, Mr. Belcher, when we have a regular board meeting or a special board meeting, if it's noon the day before, but if we only provide, sometimes we have to do 24-hour notice, I feel that doesn't give ample time as well. So I'm concerned about the timing there. I looked at several different school districts' policies on this, from D49 to Cheyenne Mountain, Douglas County, D20. And what I noticed is several of them do have the sign-up mechanism, but they give the mechanism all the way up until 2 hours before the meeting. But they also give more time frame. So they'll put out the board docs on a Thursday or Friday for a following Wednesday or Thursday meeting. So you almost have a week to look at it. So I do have some concerns about opening it up for the timing. Chris, you already brought up the concern of if we have a taxpayer who doesn't necessarily have access to digital access, that we might be limiting that. So what some districts do is to ensure that their community members have first priority is you identify who you are, what your affiliation with the district is, and what your reason for address is. We as a board need to make sure that we are protecting that ability for the public to have redress with their local officials. So that's first and foremost important to me, that we are making sure that we have that people have avenues of redress. And so they'll do it as a priority. First, it's your students get first priority. Your community members get priority. And then if the 30 minutes, there's still 30 minutes left over, somebody who is outside the district who wants to do a presentation to the board can then speak to the board. On the second half, I wanted to point out residents of the district, parents of students currently enrolled in the district, current and former students of the district, current district staff members, and individuals invited by the board. Some of our taxpayers don't live in the school district, but they pay taxes in our school district because they're business owners. So we need to make sure that, I think that they still have a voice at the table. People, parents, grandparents, family members, it's not always just parents, but anybody that has an affiliation or association with any of our 10 schools, including Monument Academy, should have a voice at the table. And then my third thought is, if it's not broke, why are we trying to fix it? If we're being transparent and we are absolutely trying to do our best to make sure that we're communicating with the public and serving our public in its best interests and serving our community, if there were to become some bombardment, then I would think that'd be a reason to address this, but we're building community trust, so is there a reason we need to address this right now? That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Tiffany. I would like to just add to that, this concept. I'm not in favor of this either. I'll just put it out there. But, there's 99% of people, whether or not that percentage is right doesn't matter, that follow the rules. There's 1% that don't. If we change the rule, the 1% who doesn't still won't. And we're kidding ourselves if we think we can legislate something like this. And I don't think it's our role, number one, to try and put in this type of a vetting that essentially excludes people from coming here and making comments. So this is a long ways away from anything I'll support.
May I ask a question?
Please.
Is it legal for us if we have a scenario where we think that 1% is here? Is it legal for us to simply say our policy is all of our public commentors need to be constituents, and that means one of these 5 things? Can you please show us something that shows you're a constituent? Can we legally do that? And if they cannot prove it, we can say, you know what? We understand you don't have it with you. We're respectful of that. You're welcome to come next time. Just bring your proof. Can we legally do that?
Essentially, you could do what the board deems necessary to ensure that the boundaries, if you want to call them that, are being held. Sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to...
No, you're fine. I was going to say something very similar. And another dynamic, usually that 1%, they're going to be loud if they're speaking in front of a microphone or not. So I don't know that that really helps the situation that much.
Yeah, I just want to say somewhat, maybe this isn't the best term, but defensively, the last thing we want to do is create barriers. I apologize that it may be appearing as such, This was a first stab at a first read. We're hearing loud and clear. There's not comfort with the way this is currently reading, but I do want to at least caution that there is a potential. Granted, it has not been the case yet, and let's hope it's not. But to the point that you just mentioned, Mr. Schwartz, as well as what I would hope we all desire, we do, and I would just throw this out there. This board has done a fantastic job of maintaining a level of respect and decorum when in many other districts there's not been that same dynamic at play. And I've heard the horror stories, and maybe you have heard them from other colleagues as well. We just want to ensure that doesn't happen here. We are certainly happy to make whatever modification or not to this. I mean, certainly we can just move forward and say, nope, what we have is plenty good. We'll take the direction from you all if that's what the advice is. But we're putting this out there, and I appreciate that there's some open dialogue that allows us to just bring those concerns up, and the concerns that you all have shared, we absolutely support and understand.
So is it perhaps the way to take this is more a tone of expectation of decorum and respect as part of the policy? Which
I, again, think we do a nice job of already in establishing that tenor from the very beginning. So I don't know that any of that language itself would need to be modified, but to the degree that this could be something that we decide needs to be revisited at some point in the future, I just want to make sure that we're doing our part to not create a gap in something that may manifest itself at some point. Hopefully it never does down the road.
Hopefully it never does, but I don't want to invite it either, and there's the unintended consequence here could be the invitation to do exactly what you're trying to prevent, and I don't want to do that.
Sure.
I want to keep this open, and I don't have a problem with what you're saying for digitally, and that helps organize. It's when you eliminate the sign-up sheet right over here that I have a real problem, because I want this to be open, and so thanks for, the first reading, but I think you've had pretty good feedback from everyone.
Thank you.
Agenda item C4, financial planning and analysis. Mr. Brett Ridgway, welcome.
And then the PDFs, Vicki.
Oh, he's running his phone.
They're not pulled up.
Okay.
Okay, good evening.
Okay.
Brett Ridgway, Chief Business Officer, here to go through some financial reporting with you. And you have the benefit of this being kind of a transitional phase, right, in the fiscal year calendar, as we're just early on in the new fiscal year and still completing the prior fiscal year. So you have kind of twice the pleasure here in terms of the number of pages from me that you would normally have. I'm not going to go through all the things on here, so let me just pick on a couple. I also have to recognize that right out of the bat, my file names are incorrect because that's giving you the wrong fiscal year on this. So the one that says 2021 is actually 21-22, and the one that says 21-22 is 22-23. So I will get those corrected for you. But those are the two packages that I want to go through first. The one that, again, that says 2021 is actually the 21-22 results. And what we have here is again, a standard reporting package. Right now it's at 70 pages. To show a lot of data. I admit this isn't all information. There's a lot of numbers on here, so there's a lot of context that needs to be added as we go along. But if you can get most of the good information that you'd like probably in the first 20 pages or so. So the pages beyond that are just additional layers of detail. that can be for your reference to some specific question or for the public, et cetera. I like to always set on the very first page here, mainly because this is the one page that fulfills all of the statutory requirements here. So if we're looking on page 2 of the package, you'll see it's just this one single page has the fund numbers going down the left-hand side in the rows, and across the top columns are different categories of the data that's being presented. And so I would just walk you through this. And why I say this represents the statutory requirements. What you need to see from the statutory perspective is revenues and expenses and basically fund balance. This is a fund balance walk forward from prior year plus revenues minus expenses to your ending fund balance of a current year. What I'm showing here on this page is again 21-22 data. You'll see both budget column. If you focus on the upper left-hand corner there where it says general fund, you see you'll see a budget column and then an actual column, both for revenues and expenditures. And then the middle section is the fund balance. Walk forward from that. So what it means is the budget that you approved last year had $47.5 million worth of revenue. It had $50 million worth of expense, so it was anticipating a fund balance drawdown of $2.5 million. Fortunately, that did not play out, and I'll go into a little bit more why I say that's a fortunate result. But you'll see in the actuals, it was basically a break-even year, $61,000. So that's completely a break-even year in terms of revenue and expenses for the general fund. What I don't like to see is that level of disparity that you see in the percent change column there. You see 97.8, 97.9 percent on the revenue side. That's okay. The 92.8% on the expense side. Again, if you have a private sector business and you hit your revenue but you're lower on your expenses, that's a great thing. It's not necessarily a great thing here in this setting. And so I want to endeavor to do much better than that in as we go forward here. So all the funds have that same pattern going down on this spreadsheet. What I'd like to do next, unless there are questions on this, is take you to page 6, which is where there is the beginning of the graphical presentation. So this might be something that is more comfortable in terms of people taking a look at it. And these pages are all focusing on the general fund. The general fund is where the action happens. Every other fund has a specific revenue source and a specific expense intention, and not that those aren't important, but they have a lot of that pre-definition built into what they are. So here on this page 6, the first couple of graphs talk about the general fund again, and the income statement activity, starting in a graph from the top graph that has these bar charts with the beginning year fund balance, adding in revenue, pulling off expenses, and then getting to the end of the year fund balance. The related graph that's below it is how it plays out on a month-to-month basis. And this is what's something that's really, really important for us to know, to see, to know, and to understand in terms of what is the point of having the fund balance that we have, especially at the end of the year, beginning of the year, because oftentimes that's all that people see is our end of year fund balance or end of year cash position, and that can create some questions as to why is there that amount of cash, that amount of fund balance being retained and not being spent. And it has to do with the cash flow pattern that we have throughout the year. So you can see, and the blue bars are the budget, the orange bars are the actuals. So the blue bars all lead down to what I call the February trough. And the reason that we have that trough is because of the seasonality of the significant portion of our revenue, which is property tax collections, only happens in the spring. But our expenses that we support our programs with basically really have an equal month-to-month type of pattern. And so what that means is that we draw down fund balance through the first 8 months of the year, 7 to 8 months of the year, until those first property tax payments start coming in the spring. In March is when we receive those. So the budget, the blue columns for the budget, you can see would have really, if the budget had played out the way it was designed, would have really drawn down the cash position to really a too low for comfort level of less than $1 million in that month of February. The actual came in right about $2 million, so that was a much better place because that also coincides with hitting the Tabor reserve number, which is $2 million. Everyone with me on that page? Any questions on that? The next pages you'll see after that are start to break down the general fund revenues by some of the major components of being local revenue and state revenue. Again, looking at budgets and actual numbers, budgets in blue and actuals in orange. You can see that we received more revenue on the local side than we budgeted, but we received less than we budgeted on the state side. Those two kind of netted to offset each other. But really, again, I would like to strive for more precision on that and not have that type of variance between those two categories, within the category, I should say, and rely on them potentially offsetting each other in the future. After that page, we get into some of the expense views, and so this is hopefully something that has a little bit of familiarity. I saw that you had been presented donut charts in the past, and so I created these donut charts for you. So now I'm on page 8. This is the donut chart of what I call total school locations. What I present on the donut chart is the table that's on the right, talking about spends that are categorized as regular instructional, special education instructional, other instructional, then some direct support spends with student support, school administration, school operations. And so in these all school locations, so this is basically our five elementaries, 2 high schools and a middle school, so those 8 programs, where our budget last year was $35.4 million, and the actual spend was 33.7, so our budget spend there was 95.1%. It doesn't have it on this page right now. As I've been building this, I want to show you what I'm doing on the next page, which is Lewis Palmer Elementary School in particular, and this is what you see on the other schools. Is I have a second table down below, which is what I call an object category recast of data. So if I'm on Lewis Palmer Elementary School on page 9, I see their budget at $2.9 million, their spend at $2.6 million, an 88% spend. Question would come then: what did that spend come from in particular? Not only do you see it in the program categories, but you can see it on the object category, meaning was it personnel, was this implementation costs? And you can see here that of the $2.9 million, $2.7 million of that budget was slated for personnel. $2.4 million of that budget was actually spent on personnel, and so we had a 90% target spend on personnel. Yes.
Some of that delta from having openings?
It's very much of that is from having open positions.
So it's less the issue of accuracy and it's more the issue of capacity to execute on the openings.
That's a big part of it. You're right.
So we just need to make sure we call that out, right?
Mm-hmm.
The difference between accuracy and operations.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question, Brett. So, let's see, you're on Lewis Palmer?
Yeah.
So here, we've got school admin, and where I'm headed is 4A, if it passes. But if I were to look at this, you've got a total personnel cost of 2.9, but if you were to exclude admin, there would be a little less number there. Is it possible that you could present this in such a way that we know how 4A impacts this?
Certainly.
Is it a lot of work or relatively ease?
That wouldn't be too bad.
Okay. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think, and, you know, I want to, again, I've been on board for about 3 months now, and what I'm seeing in our financials system is the impact of some of the turnover that we've had. So there's a lot of different styles that have been in play, a lot of different philosophies in terms of the bookkeeping. All valid, all accurate, nothing bad in any way. But again, the difference between accounting and finance is science and art. There's an art to finance, and that means in terms of presentation and how data is presented and especially projected in terms of budgets and forecasts. So I want to introduce.
Before our next regular board meeting, we'll know the outcome, but it would be nice to be able to present this so that there's a transparency, visibility into the impact should it pass.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I have a question as well.
Sure.
And since we're just happen to be on Lewis Palmer Elementary, I'll pick on Lewis Palmer Elementary since we're just sitting here. In the past, when we've had our budgets presented, we've had line items of this is how much was spent on supplies, this is how much is being spent on widgets. I appreciate that we have this type of layout because it's easy for me to understand, but for those that need to see down to the penny line by line, do we still have, I noticed it wasn't in this year's budget, but a lot was we were doing a lot of transition over the summer. Is it possible to still have those reports in our financial transparency page where we're doing the line by line, the school by school?
So, yes, of course there is, and we still have that even in this package. So, looking at Lewis Palmer Elementary School, if you go to page 30, so you click up there in the top and just click in and type in 30, you'll come to a page that has numbers about things like supplies, equipment, salaries and benefits. The top half of this page is about the actuals. The bottom half of this page is about the budget. And what's going across the top is these same categories that I'm presenting in the graphs. These are program subtotals. So what are we spending on regular instruction, special instruction, other instruction, et cetera, going across here. So I am trying to provide both. And of course, there's detail behind this even.
Yeah, I was looking at the color coding.
Yeah.
So Brett, this is 3 months of your fiscal year, the actual?
Well, what I'm talking about right now is last year's full year. This is the numbers I'm showing right now. The other report is 3 years. Is 3 months.
Well, I was looking at I thought it was the budget, this year's budget to this year's actual. Yeah, it is. It's 22-23 C budget versus 22-23 C.
Yeah, so you're in. I'm sorry, and this is part of the confusion when I have both files. You're in a different file altogether. It's laid out exactly the same, so you're on the same page numbers and everything. It's just a different data set.
So you've got up here last year's numbers?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I was looking at this year's. But when we get to this year's, it's a 3-month period?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm still confused. Sorry, Brett. So when we go back up to the donut graph and I'm looking at total spend on school ops, that's not staff, correct?
School operations, no, it's mostly things like utilities.
Okay. School admin, student support, other instruction, sped instruction, and regular instruction. Is that all staff?
No.
No.
This is total budget.
Okay, so it could be things that are being used in that particular program or
Right.
whatever, category, whatever.
Yeah, so if you see the total of that 2.947
Yes.
on that page, and down below in the smaller font table is the same 2.947 cut a different way. So
Okay.
there's personnel and implementation in each of the program lines. Here you turn it this way and it's all personnel and implementation. That means all programs are in it.
So I'm wondering if maybe at upcoming work session, you could kind of walk through the detail
Mhm.
and show how these slides roll up and how it comes into, you know, the bigger picture that you start with.
Sure.
So that we don't, because we're going to go through this every month otherwise.
Mhm.
So we probably ought to get a feel for, you know, this page, you know, if you look at these numbers, it shows up here, et cetera.
Sure.
Just walk us through the mechanics of it.
Okay.
It would be helpful for each of us.
Yeah.
And the public.
Will there be an exam at the end of the class?
Yes, of course. Or a quiz. I'm not sure it'll be a full exam, but can we jump to enrollment?
Okay.
And what was the number in our budget for 22, 23? What was the head count that we were using?
We are basically right on the budget in total. I think it was like 66.
We're at 6649.
49 is the head count.
That's the head count. Is that the budget number?
It's pretty much the budget number.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
So there's not going to be a lot of discrepancy there.
Not as much as I feared.
Okay.
So does that make flex budgeting less necessary?
No.
It's
still very necessary. And I don't know. That's a new term for me, flex budgeting. I call it the amended budget because that's what statute calls it. In statute, we have the adopted budget, we have the amended budget, we have supplemental budgets. So I'm going to be pretty strict on those terms for it. But the amended budget is still the most important budget piece that we do because it has such good information in it. It's not just a projection of what's happening, where there is good information about the actual October count, there's good information about the actual per pupil revenue, good information about the staffing levels. And so the amended budget still will be a big part of what we're going to be talking about over the next couple months. And I want to start with that in the work session next week, as a matter of fact. Because it's a topic I want to talk about at every single meeting, how these pieces again come together when we start with talking about the School Finance Act, talk about other pieces of revenue, then look at the expense load as we get those layers of detail to provide a good answer for you for the amended budget.
So the 816 was just the first day of school count?
Yes, that is correct.
So between the first day of school and October 3rd, overall, there was a reduction of 68 students?
Yes.
Is that surprising to anyone, or is that just?
No, that's a normal pattern.
Yeah, we don't always know about students and families who have potentially moved over the summer until we start school. It just takes a little bit of time for us to have all that cleaned up.
So the 816, is that a physical count?
It's what's in Infinite Campus as of the first day of school,
so
and then there's some no-shows, and then we true all that up over the next several days.
That answers the question. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes all of our campus schools, including Monument Academy, homeschool enrichment.
Yes.
So when we're talking about our FTE, that includes every one of our schools when we're talking about our funding, and then that goes out to.
You mean PPOR, not FTE?
Yeah, I'm sorry, PPOR. So for example, preschool's half day, right? So it's half funding. So it's not an actual.
Right. So the 6649 is a head count number. The funded count will be less than that.
Okay. And then Monument Academy still gets their 100% funding. It's backpack funding that follows each student, right?
Yes. And then there's some of the cost sharing things that get withdrawn from it. The math starts with total PPR times their total funded student count is their gross revenue.
Right, okay. And when we look at time, I started looking at cohorts on how they grow since 2014. Obviously most of those kids have graduated, but I started looking at cohorts since 2017 on how the growth has changed with each grade level when they start in first, second, third, and how those student counts grow Obviously, Lewis Palmer Elementary used to have preschool, and they don't anymore. Palmer Ridge High School had a very large had one of the largest graduating classes they've had last year. So there's going to be ebbs and flows and anomalies such as COVID or Black Forest fire when that happened. But I've been looking at the numbers on how they change, and typically we're at 1 or about 2.5%, and we're gaining back to about 1%. Is what it's looking like. Am I off on that?
In terms of 1%
And percentage of growth.
Of growth?
Yeah.
Yes, it's very moderate. It's a very moderate number, but still positive, yes.
We declined in 2021, and then we regained a number of those students in 21-22 and in 22-23. So I think the total net, if you go back to 2019-20, total net has been an overall dip, but it plays itself out in different grades and in different schools. So that overall, that is the trend. We've been relatively stable, if you want to use that term, not growing like we were in the majority of the teens. Now, where that goes from here is subject to some different assumptions and some different factors related to growth or development in the area, so on and so forth. So as we've shared, I think hinted at, without necessarily going into a lot of detail, there needs to be, with our demographic projections, an accounting of what growth may look like over the next 3 to 5 to 7 to 10 years. As we stand today, and as we are even looking at for next year, and I will add this, our projections from year to year have actually been pretty consistent with what our actuals have come in as. So we haven't seen a huge major swing that's impacted our ability to project revenue that's consistent with our total enrollment. But yeah, those days of what will it look like as more kids start coming in is something that we definitely need to deep dive as part of a longer range projection.
And how do you, at the same time, how do you project where family choices? Like when I look at, I'm looking at Kilmer, for example. Last year, Kilmer gained 38 students from last year to the year before. This year, Kilmer, it looks like Kilmer lost 42. So between 38 and 42, that's not that many students. But you're going to have ebbs and flows of families where they move, they come, they go, they choice in and out. What I'm curious about is making sure that we're staying steady within a certain delta. And I don't know if there's a delta to be able to predict.
There's trends that certainly we can observe and learn from. There's also elements of beyond the quantitative projections or factors that we're analyzing. What are some of the qualitative aspects of that data? So, for example, when we get our finalized count for this school year, there's an opportunity for us to review what are our choice in, choice out numbers, and potentially even reach out to families to say, hey, what was it that, what was the factor of you making a decision to choose elsewhere? Or for families that are incoming, what were the factors that influenced your choice, either in or out? So I think those are all important dynamics. Because yes, this is, Brett talked about the science and the art earlier. This, I think, there's a lot of science to this, and a lot of also understanding what are some of the variables that families have in front of them as they're making decisions one way or another.
What I glean out of this is last year, Bear Creek grew 51 students from the previous year. This year, Bear Creek grew 50 students from the previous year, and they've grown 5 students even since then. So Bear Creek is clearly still a growing school.
And we'll get more as the year moves along. So if you look at that data over the course of post-October 1 through the end of a school year, there's always a number of students that are moving into our district that are not part of an official count that still do factor into those overall numbers.
Oh, that's true. I was just trying to find trends. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Can I go back to the 21-22 results?
Sure.
For a second, please. And you mentioned the amended budget time, and that's again what we'll be kicking off here with our in our next meeting. And one of the things that we'll talk about not only is the revenue sources, the expense intentions as well, but also about fund balance, especially as we go into funds beyond the general fund. And one of the ones that I wanted to draw attention to that tonight was the transportation fund. So Fund 25 is where we do all of our accounting for the fee-for-service transportation program. And what you, let me see, make sure I'm on the right. Yeah, so in fact, I'll go to this, I'll go back to page 2 where I was at. I'm going to zoom in on the section that has Fund 25 here. And what you'll see is that we have fund balance in there at the end of the year of about $800,000. So that represents one-time money that could be turned around and used for one-time type of purposes. Specifically, what I would be envisioning is some opportunity to actually buy some buses with that. You know, a bus costs about $100,000 plus, and if we have some fund balance here, we could, if you were so inclined, take a portion of that money and start improving the age of the transportation fleet with that. And the reason I want to bring this one up in particular now, I mean, a lot of the other things and a lot of the other conversations, again, we'll have through the course of the amended budget process. But buying buses is an extremely long lead time right now. And so even if we wanted to have something available to impact next school year, we would need to be making a decision really quick on that. And so I wanted to just throw this kind of topic out there and just kind of understand what would be your impression of that. How would you like to pursue that, if you would like to pursue that, things of that nature. Just kind of have throwing that question to you all.
Ron?
I'd like to make a suggestion. First of all, let me back up. It's a great problem to have. We'll take it every month. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
A suggestion I'd like to make is we have a work session coming up in a week.
Mm-hmm.
Can the district give us the top 3 or 4 options of best student and staff facing return for a one-time investment of those funds? And then we can exercise it.
That sounds good to me.
What about the rest of the team?
You pulled my thoughts out of my head.
I actually read them from your notebook. Thank you.
Does that mean you were cheating?
No sharing, Dr. Summers.
Okay.
Matt, any comment, question?
You know, it sounds like a great idea. We actually had a contract to buy a number of buses, I think in 2019 or 2020, and we had to void the contract when there was the economic downturn. So I guess if at the work session, if we decide we're going to go that direction, I know there was a fair amount of work that went into identifying what type of bus before we signed the contract. So just put that out there.
Teresa, any questions or comments?
No, not right now. Thanks.
Well, let me add this. I appreciate your suggesting how we might utilize those funds in Fund 25, but I'd also like to see it in the context of our comprehensive strategic plan. And this feels like a one-off, because it's a fund that you're looking at, and you're sure there's a need. There's always a need to buy a bus. Always. I get that. I just don't want us to fall away from the focus of our strategic plan. And that means there's limited resources and there's many needs, and we have to weigh and realize the friction between those needs and then make the best decision possible. And I would encourage Dr. Summers and the entire team to always look at these spending requests in that focus of comprehensive strategic plan. Where does that fit? I know Chris is doing work on our, I can't remember the name of the index, but I know what he's working on.
Facility condition. FCI.
Yeah, FCI, thank you. And that's useful because that will help us direct where funds need to go. So that's my only reaction at this point. I look forward to the work session. I look forward to fleshing out the detail, but I would appreciate it if you would keep it in the context of our comprehensive plan, because we do have limited resources, and I want to make sure that we're making the best decision for all resources, not just because they've been called Fund 25.
Understand. Good feedback. Totally agree.
Any other questions or comments on this agenda item? Did you have more to cover?
I do, just a bit, if that's okay.
You bet.
And so, yeah, we focused on the 21-22 results, and so you got there for your further consumption, and this will also be posted. This is what I want to post out on our transparency page. I've also got some things in there for you. I had this file called General Business Updates, and one of the reasons I wanted to I want to do this regularly for you as well. To provide you some of the information that I receive. But one of the things I was interesting about what has happened recently with us is one of our past or regular antagonists had suggested that we invest our money with Colo Trust. And I really appreciated that because I took that as some good validation to some decisions that we've already made as an organization, and also some validation to some work that I've been doing for the last 12 years, being a member of the board of Colo Trust. And so that is a good vehicle, and so I appreciate the fact that was suggested as a good investment vehicle for us to put our cash in. And what I receive as being on the board of Colo Trust is a lot of good economic data, and so I typically like to share that with my board, and so I have that in here as well. So things that you may be interested in terms of the greater economic picture. Are we in a recession or are we not in a recession? There's that kind of large question that's out there. What's happening with gross domestic product, unemployment? One of the things that's interesting here is that in terms of the Treasury market, the yield curve is inverted right now. So now is not the time to be putting money out long on the curve, because you actually are earning less than if you put it short on the curve. Now that's a really unusual scenario for us to be in, but it's things that we need to be aware of and conscious of when we're deciding where our money should go. So this information, like I said, I received this. We have quarterly meetings, and I want to be able to provide this to you so you have that type of information for your purposes as well.
So these return numbers are significantly better than what we've seen in the last 24 months. But what does it mean to the district in terms of the cash we have in Colo Trust? So for example, and if it's for next meeting, great, but I think it's important for us to understand how much more we're earning on the money that we place in the hands of Colorado Trust, and what the delta is with some of these new returns.
Well, and I would be fair I want to be fair too, and to say that many of the companies that banks that we have money with, returns are going up across the board. And so what I'm bringing up here is our year-to-date package for this year. And so to answer your question in a long way fashion, you know, we had only budgeted $1,500 of interest income this year. That was a too low number to begin with, A. But B, if you look, especially when you look at last year's number when we earned $22,000 worth of interest, this year already we've earned $60,000 of interest in the first quarter.
I guess my bigger question is, if we start the year with $13 million of balance, we whittle it down to February to a very low amount, and some of these are 30-day returns at 3%.
Right.
And that's an annual number, not a 30-day number.
An annualized number.
Can we move 10 million of it over in the short term? Is it legal? Is it safe? Is it insured? And recognize the 3% return for 3 or 4 months?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Okay, great.
Yes.
And that delta right there funds a teacher or two, does it not?
It does. Like I said, especially we've already earned $60,000 worth of interest this year.
Right, that's almost an entire teacher, fully burdened. Right, 75 is our average number, right? Give or take.
Salary benefits included?
Yeah, everything.
All in.
Lights, everything.
And so, yeah, $60,000 is more than we would have earned it in a year. In a year.
So it's important for
probably
the
in a
public
decade.
to know that we're in a safe and secure manner and a legal manner, that we're maximizing the return and we're using it for student and staff benefit.
Safe and secure and legal, because there are all kinds of statutory requirements on how public funds are accounted for.
Right.
So-
We have a small box to play in, but let's maximize our capacity to play in that box and get our score as high as possible.
Yep. So this is really good.
Yeah. So could you provide us, for the next time we do this, whether it's quarterly or whatever, the physical numbers and the delta from last year?
Sure.
It's important.
Yeah, we'll be tracking that, you know, on this page for sure.
And of course, how we'll apply it to the strategic plan.
Well, and obviously in the comprehensive plan, there's the costs that are going up due to inflation, so there's a double-edged sword here.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your economic update. That was a very good information. I appreciate it a lot.
Sure.
Thanks, Brett.
Glad to share that.
Anything else?
Nothing else from me. Anything else from you?
No, I think we're good. Thank you. Our next agenda item is C5. Consider approve board resolution regarding Proposition 122. I'd like to make a motion to express the Lewis Palmer School District 38 Board of Education's opposition to Proposition 122 via approval of the resolution titled Opposing Psychoactive Substances in Our Community as presented. Ms. Upchurch, you're going to lead a discussion on this?
I will. So I don't know if it's conflict to second it or I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay. Basically, what this draft is it is not saying we're going to campaign or go out there and put district energy into it. But what it is saying is that the way 122 is written, if we're focusing in on safe and healthy and welcoming schools, this opens a door for psychedelic substances, for hallucinogens. And do we as a district, the reason I don't think that we as a district should typically be getting involved personally. This is my personal perspective, that we should be getting involved in a lot of politics. But this one is more than just politics. This is this potentially will be in our communities. And this particular bill does not allow local jurisdictions to say we don't want to ban and say we don't want you in our community. We don't want this in our community. We don't have that opportunity. So that opens a door for easier access to our students. And we're already looking at, we've seen the numbers on fentanyl use in our county, and we have a lot of students that vape. This is just another thing that we are going to have to spend resources, in my opinion, as a district, should this come into our community. It's called magic mushrooms because it is sold for medical use, but you can still grow. You can give as gifts. And there's some side effects that I just don't think are conducive to a welcoming, safe, and healthy environment in our schools. That's the reason I drafted this, and I will leave it up to the board to decide. Thanks.
Matt, any comments or questions?
You know, I appreciate Ms. Upchurch. You always are a strong advocate for our kids, and I would love to continue to keep Colorado a safe, wholesome environment for our kids. I just, my only concern is if we go down this road, where do we stop? Quite frankly, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to vote on this, so I'd like to hear from my other fellow board members and get your perspectives.
Thank you, Matt. Ron?
So I think Mr. Clausen brought up some of the points I'm concerned about too. Is do we want to make a public position on a stated public position on something like this? If we think it's a risk and danger to our kids, then we should do so. If we think it's just simply stating a position on an issue, we likely should refrain from that because we're apolitical. So that's my thought.
You know, and if I might add to what Ron said, my other concern is if we take a position here, and there is another position for another substance, and for some reason we decide not to take a position on that, you know, what is the inference? Is it that the board is supporting it? So I think we just need to be careful if we're going to set a precedence, and if we are to set a precedent as a board to put a position statement out there objecting to any substance that we think would be wrong for our kids, I think that's a discussion we probably need to have a little more in depth than a few minutes before a proposed vote at a board meeting.
Thank you. Teresa?
I concur with what Matt and Ron have both said, and I am concerned about the precedent, and I think where I draw the distinction is if there were an action by the state, or if Proposition 122 passes, and then we as a board need to, you know, anticipate or confront what's going on in our local community, then I think then I'd be more comfortable taking action. But in terms of a position on a proposed proposition that hasn't been voted on yet, I feel uncomfortable with that.
Okay, so if I might, I'm just going to read part of it. It says, whereas Lewis Palmer School District prioritized safe, healthy, and welcoming schools as a key goal in this strategic plan, and then it talks about this particular proposition. I think the intent here, if I clearly understand that, is that we don't support this particular proposition because it is contrary to our goal number one, safe, healthy, and welcoming schools. And so the resolve is that we oppose this proposition. That's all it says. It doesn't say anything more than that, other than we oppose it because it is contrary to our goal one. Is that a fair reflection, Tiffany, of what this is doing?
That's why I put it out in the first statement, whereas Lewis Palmer School District 38 prioritizes safe, healthy, and welcoming schools as a key goal in the strategic plan. And you can scroll down, whereas Proposition 22 limits local jurisdictions from having the authority to enact regulations that may align with its own community and reduce exposure to psychedelic drugs. And whereas our district partners with our community to protect our students, staff, and schools against initiatives that will have a negative impact on goal number 1, safe, healthy, and welcoming schools.
Well, again, I haven't read Proposition 122, but what you're saying there is that it limits us, the local jurisdiction, from having any authority to enact regulations that may align with our own community and reduce our exposure to psychedelic drugs.
So it lets local governments set some operating rules for those facilities, but it does not allow local governments to have an all-out ban on these facilities in their jurisdictions.
Whereas the marijuana law does.
Correct. So those facilities would be potentially, if it passes, close to our schools, possibly.
Can I make a recommendation? Quite frankly, I haven't reviewed and thoroughly 122 yet. You know, maybe we could have the work session as a special meeting, and we both, well, as one board member, I'd like to do my due diligence and review it before I feel comfortable voting. But
So do you want to make a motion to postpone until the work session?
what I'm doing is I'm throwing out an idea, and I'd like to hear what my fellow board members think before I make any motion.
I definitely feel more comfortable with that as a solution.
Well, fundamentally, that, you know, what I've heard, and I want you to correct me if I'm misinterpreting this, but what I'm hearing is there is a concern about this board taking a position on a political matter and setting some sort of precedent. So without regard to Proposition 122, what I'm hearing is it's not just this issue that is of concern, it's more that we're taking a position on any issue. Is that accurate?
Well, not necessarily. We have taken positions about a lot of issues. You know, for example, the Drug Rehabilitation Center, we took a position there.
The sex ed issue.
The sex ed issue, we took a position there. So, you know, as I see it, it's twofold. You know, as a board, we need to determine if we are going to take an issue and set a precedent. The second step is, you know, I want to make sure that I'm well prepared as far as what this proposition 122 involves, and you know, if it's compelling to me that we do need to take a position as one board member, I might say, well, maybe moving forward, we take a position against any substance that could be used for our kids that could adversely affect them in the classroom and outside.
So because of these other positions we've taken in the past on various issues, this doesn't really set a precedent of us taking a position. What is the precedent that you're concerned about?
Well, the precedent would be anything, any other substance. What if it was some other illicit drug that there was a proposition that they legalize it? So my view is it is a slippery slope, and I distinguish this type of situation compared to a drug rehab center or the state of Colorado trying to force sex education on us. I distinguish those. So once again, I want to do my due diligence before I make my final decision. And I apologize, Ms. Upchurch, for not doing that prior to this board meeting, but I think it would be wise for us all to maybe think about this a little further and discuss it. And if we want to move forward at our next work session meeting, which is what, on Monday of next week? Tuesday. We'd be in a position to do so.
So I'm still on this precedent issue. So this is this Proposition 122, you don't see as like having a drug rehab facility built and or a particular curriculum being passed. This is something different in that it's a proposition rather than law, or I'm really trying to understand, when does this become an issue then?
Well, and I appreciate that, Chris. As I just articulated, I haven't read 122 yet. I'm not going to vote on anything until I'm thoroughly advised and I can determine as one board member what I perceive to be the best interest for the students of District 38.
Very good, very good. And I've already taken a position since I voted early. Personally.
Same here.
That's fair.
So I don't mind giving some time for understanding of what the issue is. Ron, what is your thoughts?
I'd like to discuss in our work session and really dive deep into this.
Okay. Teresa, are you consistent with that?
I am. I'd like some more time to provide for more understanding. Yes.
Okay, so according to Robert's Rules of Law,
Right.
there's a motion before us that's been presented and seconded. So I think we need to vote.
Well, procedurally, if I may, there is an opportunity, if the will of the board is to table the vote, then a subsequent motion that is stating essentially a desire to take the issue up again at a future special meeting scheduled for November 1st, then that motion would be the vote, and your other motion would just be tabled until said time that's been set forth. So you wouldn't necessarily want to take a vote, yes or no, on the original motion, Mr. Taylor, because then that takes you down the road of where you're going with this. And so if it makes sense, if somebody else wanted to make a motion to table until a future special meeting, that would be the most appropriate action.
So,
Well,
yeah.
Tiffany, what do you want to do? Because
So if a motion, I have no problem voting now, but I also want to allow my fellow board members the respect to, we put this out there a month ago, but a motion would be needed to be made to table, and that would need to be seconded, which would take precedence, and then that would make this the first business that would have to be discussed at the next meeting, because it would be considered old business, and it would have to be discussed first at at the time that the next meeting happens.
Or the other option is you could withdraw the original motion that Mr. Taylor made, and we have already established that at this point the desire is to have a special meeting. So that could be a clean way to do it as well. It's either or.
Or we could call the vote and then.
You could do that, and then but the vote would
Probably.
carry.
Right.
So those are your three options.
When is our work session? Is it November?
Tuesday, November 1st, 8 o'clock.
Okay.
With respect to the majority of the board's decision to vote on this next Tuesday, I would make a motion to table the vote until the work session on Tuesday, November 1st.
Or essentially, sorry, it would be Mr. Taylor that would essentially withdraw his motion.
No, I'm making a motion to postpone it. The vote still has to be taken, but if I make a motion to postpone and it's seconded, then we postpone.
That works. Yes, that works.
It becomes old business, it would have to be voted on.
And I'll second that, yes, Church.
Yep.
All right. Any comments or questions on that?
No, and once again, Ms. Upchurch, you always are doing what's good for the students. And once again, I just want to do my due diligence. I probably should have spent a little more time going through it, and I just didn't get that done. So yeah, my apology for that.
Any other comments on?
Vicky still has to take the roll for a vote to postpone.
Well, that's what we're
Right.
talking about first. All right. So, Ms. Wood, would you call the vote on the proposal to postpone?
Before we take the vote, when you ask for discussion, the one comment I would have in discussion is to my fellow board members is we did put this out there. I appreciate that sometimes things get busy, so I would just ask that anybody reach out to me and ask questions, and that you have the opportunity to look and research and be prepared on Tuesday.
And I did enjoy our discussion about this matter, by the way.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Wood, the vote now on postponing our vote.
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Where's my proposal here? Oh, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Comments, questions? Hearing none. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.
This meeting is now adjourned. Our next meeting is November 1st, 8 a.m., which will be a special meeting along with a work session.
Did you want to skip E? Sorry. There is a section E, but.
Yes, I do.
Okay. It might. Okay.
Yeah, we'll pick that up at the work session too.
Okay. We'll move that.